Well, we promised new information on Josh Holt. There he is, shaking hands with Senator Orrin Hatch. There's his wife, we believe one of her daughters, and there he is, hugging his mom. We believe this is, it says it's at Senator Hatch's office, although they met at Dulles Airport when he returned from Venezuela. A freed American hostage, joyous, hugging his mom there. What a wonderful homecoming. That's it for Fox Report this Saturday, May 26, 2018. I'm Ed Henry. Thanks for watching. Watters World is going to start now, but I can tell you we're going to break in live next hour if, in fact, Josh Holt meets President Trump. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Watters World. I'm Jesse Watters. Getting played for a chump by Donald Trump, that is the subject of tonight's Watters Words. After Little Rocket Man badmouthed Mike Pence and failed to prep for the Singapore summit, Trump did what John Kerry should have done. He walked away from the table.
Based on the recent statement of North Korea, I've decided to terminate the planned summit in Singapore on June 12th. Well, many things can happen, and a great opportunity lies ahead potentially. I believe that this is a tremendous setback for North Korea and indeed a setback for the world. If and when Kim Jong-un chooses to engage in constructive dialogue and actions, I am waiting.
POTUS also sent the North Korean leader a letter, which read in part, "You talk about your nuclear capabilities, but ours are so massive and powerful that I pray to God they will never have to be used. I felt a wonderful dialogue was building up between you and me, and ultimately it is only that dialogue that matters. Someday, I look very much forward to meeting you. In the meantime, I want to thank you for the release of those hostages who are now home with their families. That was a beautiful gesture and was very much appreciated. If you change your mind having to do with this most important summit, please do not hesitate to call me or write." Incredible letter and classic art of the deal. Trump never locked in.
We'll see what happens. If the meeting happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, we go on to the next step. We're moving along, and we'll see what happens. There are certain conditions that we want, and I think we'll get those conditions. And if we don't have the meeting. Well, we're going to see what happens on Singapore. We're going to see.
We're going to see. So the president gave up nothing while the North Koreans destroyed their nuclear testing facility, froze ballistic missile tests, committed to end the Korean War, and released American hostages. Trump pulls out on principle, and Kim gets put in his place and loses face. Now America is negotiating from an even stronger position. Believe it to the left, all they see is a win for Kim.
I think it's a good thing for Kim Jong-un. When he got this letter from the president saying, okay, never mind, he must be having a giggle fit.
The art of diplomacy is a lot harder than the art of the deal.
The president was rehearsing his end zone dance, and we weren't even at the 50-yard line yet on this summit.
There goes that Nobel Peace Prize. He was there. You go.
So let me get this straight. When Trump announced the summit, the Dems said Kim had won. And when Trump canceled the summit, the Dems said Kim had won. It's a perfect example of the left's duplicity. The left-wing narrative on North Korea has always favored the North Koreans at the expense of Trump. Fire and fury was too tough. Our allies weren't behind us. China wouldn't help us. Remember the media got suckered into North Korean Olympic propaganda? And they said Kim Jong-un's sister was a better diplomat than Ivanka. Democrats side with America's opponents just to score political points against Trump. For example, in the course of this presidency, Democrats have defended Hamas, MS-13, Iranian mullahs, waterboarded terrorists, risky Syrian refugees, and Antifa. Trump's success has boxed Democrats into such radical positions they're becoming politically irrational. And now the North Koreans signaling they want the meeting back on. President Trump's reaction.
We're going to see what happens. We're talking to them now. It was a very nice statement they put out. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It could even be the 12th. We're talking to them now. They very much want to do it. We'd like to do it. We're going to see what happens.
Clearly, the North Koreans want this more than the United States. Trump has the upper hand, and the Democrats have no hand. Here to react, former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci and former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, now part of the VP's Political Action Committee, the Great America Committee. Do you guys get along, you two? There's no turf war here? Everything's going to be okay?
No, we both got fired. We get along great. Come on. Doesn't get better than that, baby.
So much in common.
It's
Yes.
a select group, but it's getting bigger.
Yeah, you got fired, and then they bring in Manafort. How about that? Not a good idea.
So well.
I know. Do you ever hold that against him?
You know what it is? We're the FBL's fired but loyal.
Fired but loyal.
Fired but
Yeah,
loyal.
they have a
That's
few
a
other
small
people. A very small group. Hopefully getting smaller. So, what do you think about my brilliant commentary, Corey?
Look, here's what I think. The left will never give this president the credit that he deserves. First, he wasn't going to be prepared for the meeting. Now he's had personally negotiated the release of 3 American hostages there. He gets no credit for that. He's moving towards the denuclearization of the North Korean peninsula. He gets no credit for that. And all they say is, remember, even when the meeting was potentially going to be on, he will never be ready for this meeting. He is not prepared. He never gets the credit he deserves, and it's shameful.
It is shameful. And why do you think that is, Anthony? Why do you think the Democrats, throwing political caution to the wind, side with people like Kim Jong-un? Don't they see that that's not smart politics?
They're so scared of the president. Let's just face it, okay? He is not a politician in the classic sense. And so when you look at all of those sound bites that you just played, they're all off the same playbook. The president's operating off a different playbook. It's a business executive's playbook. It's a negotiating style that isn't typical in Washington. And so they are so fearful, Jesse, that he's going to win with his negotiating style. And then it's going to cause the American people to do what they're already starting to do. Is why do we need these guys when we can bring in people like the president to handle these matters?
Right, it's a threat to the political class.
That's why they're going so crazy.
So if good things happen for America and Donald Trump, bad things happen for the Democratic Party. That's how they see it. So they can't allow the president to have a foreign policy success.
Jesse, these Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they hate this president.
Crying Chuck.
They hate this president more than they love their country. And it's a sad commentary, but it's so true. Look, 30 years of failed foreign policy under Crooked H, under live shot John Kerry, right? It failed and it failed and it failed. And what happened was John Kerry failed, Hillary Clinton failed. Donald Trump came in and said, I'm going to do it differently. And now we're seeing success in North Korea for the first time.
Yeah, John Kerry's not going to be riding his bicycle over in Singapore.
He didn't do that so well.
No, not so well. Let me get your reaction to James Comey. So the Spygate thing has now blown into the atmosphere, and Comey was asked about, did they have a spy in the campaign? Here's what the former FBI director said.
As best I can tell, it's made up. I don't know where he's getting that from, honestly.
Do you find that to be at all possible or probable? I'm going to just play devil's advocate, that there was a spy inserted into his campaign by an intelligence agency?
I don't find it possible, and I know it not to be true.
Maybe James Clapper had a different take on this. Let's hear what he had to say.
Was the FBI spying on Trump's campaign?
No, they were not. They were spying on a term I don't particularly like, but on what the Russians were doing, trying to understand, were the Russians infiltrating, trying to gain access, trying to gain leverage and influence.
So why doesn't he like
what they do?
So why doesn't he like that? He should be happy that.
Well, he should be.
So who do we believe, the liar or the leaker?
They're both liars. Because the problem is hard to differentiate between these two liars. I mean, what it really comes down to is Jim Comey has lied in front of Congress on so many occasions. His deputy, Andrew McCabe, lied to the FBI under oath on 3 different occasions. Clapper and Brennan, these guys have probably perpetuated the worst crime on American government political system history. And now they're scurrying rats. They're all pointing the finger at each other. What the bottom line is, these guys are going to have many, many bad days in front of them because they continue every time they go on television to lie, and they can't even get their story straight.
Well, yeah, the stories are going to get worse because you got to keep your stories together if investigators are going to start asking you questions.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're obviously going to have to get that story straight, but they could have gone to the president. I know Corey would agree with me on this. They could have gone in when he was candidate and said, listen, we're worried about the following things, and we're going to put some people, in place to pick up Russian intelligence. The president's a total patriot, would have been totally fine with it. But what they did was they completely underestimated the president. They were fearful that he was going to win, and they certainly wanted Hillary Clinton to win, and so they did it in this very surreptitious way. And now they're not going to come clean on it under any circumstances.
Well, they're saying they want to protect the president. They put a spy in the campaign to protect him.
Jesse,
they could have disclosed it to him. He would have been fine with it. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Jesse, there was only one campaign of the two nominees that took $5 million out of their campaign war chest paid a former MI6 special agent to go to Russia to create a false dossier, and it wasn't the Trump campaign, it was the Clinton campaign. The question is, if they put a spy into the Trump campaign, did they also do that with the campaign that gave $5 million to go to Russia to create a false dossier? And we know the answer is no.
Right.
This was their insurance policy against a Trump success.
So you have Hillary Clinton, who's out there gallivanting with foreign leaders, foreigners from some suspicious countries, donating millions of dollars to her foundation, and there's no interest in the FBI of foreign influence onto the Clinton campaign. I would say that there's more foreign influence into the Clinton campaign from China, from Middle Eastern countries, from the Russians, than there was into the Trump campaign.
They're part of that system, though, and they're part of that artifice. And so that the next move will be to completely protect them, because God forbid if anything happens to them, they are two big dominoes that knock into everybody else, Jesse.
Yeah, well, the FBI is looking like the KGB, and they're going to have to start answering some questions. Also answering questions, the NFL finally has a policy about kneeling. I guess they bent to the president's will and to the will of the fans who didn't like the disrespect. Trump was asked about that change in policy. I think they're going to be kneeling, if they do kneel, not on the field, in the locker room. Brian Kilmeade caught up with the president.
You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
Oh, that freaked everybody out. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country. Maybe the left thinks he's going to deport some strong safeties or something like that.
You know, Jesse, there are rules for every organization that people work for.
Yeah.
And one of the rules is very simple. Stand up and acknowledge the national anthem. I don't understand why this is even a controversial question, right? Look, if you don't...
It's not. 70% of the country agrees with it.
Jesse, if you don't want to respect the flag that men and women have died for the right to have there, then don't play a silly game where you make millions of dollars. And I know you're a talented, NFL player, but guess what? It is a privilege to play that game. And if you don't want to do it, there's a lot of other people who will go out and be happy to take your spot.
That's right.
Well, I love the integration of the free market capitalist system with the patriotism, because at the end of the day, the viewer walked away from the NFL.
And the ratings went down, attendance went down.
And so that scared all of them. But they're up against it now with the Players Union. We'll have to see how that resolves itself. So
that's right.
So to me, I think they made the right decision. I think there's other ways to progress peace and social justice. If that's your agenda, I'm all for the First Amendment. But that is a game of entertainment. And the American people don't like what they're doing, and I'm glad that they made that decision.
Someone who disagrees with you, one of the coaches, Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors, had this to say on the new policy.
Basically trying to use the anthem as fake patriotism, nationalism, scaring people. It's idiotic. I'm proud to be in a league that understands patriotism in America is about free speech, about peacefully protesting. Our president decided to make it about that. The NFL followed suit, pandered to their fan base.
He's wrong, Anthony, because it's not about the First Amendment. You have the First Amendment. Fine, kneel or do what you need to do at a softball game in your backyard. But like you said, when you're at your employer's place of work in a stadium that he owns and you're wearing a jersey that he owns and he's paying you to work, he's not paying you to kneel. He's paying you to play football. You have to do what the company wants you to do.
He's also leaving out of that the NBA has signed into their collective bargaining agreement that everybody has to stand for the anthem, because they recognize it's a level of entertainment and they want to be respectful to all citizens of America.
So the NBA has a different policy than the NFL.
NBA has a different policy.
And they all stand there.
They all have to stand.
So what is he talking about? He's a hypocrite.
It's signed contractually into the collective bargaining agreement.
Of course he's a hypocrite, but this is, Jesse, it's so simple, right? It's so simple. You play a game, you make a lot of money, it's an entertainment thing, you stand up, you show some respect for the greatest country in the world, which is where we live, and gives you the privilege of playing. If you don't want to stand for the national anthem, you're welcome to go play overseas somewhere. Good luck, Steve Kerr, making the same amount of money, coaching in Romania. I don't think it's going to happen.
I do get the grievance, though.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a format for the grievances other than that. And
I mean, listen, police brutality and racism is a serious issue in this country.
No question.
At the same time, there's other avenues where you can pontificate
Just
about
remember,
that.
the greatest of all time, who was protesting the Vietnam War, said it was a white man's war. He left boxing. He didn't stand in the ring and kneel in the ring. He left boxing to make that protest. And so now I'm not saying people should be doing that today, but I just want you to think of the power and the courage of being able to do that 50 years ago.
That's right. You look like you played football. Take a few hits to the head, Corey?
I've taken more. I think that was my growing up in Lowell, Massachusetts, a couple hits to the head, yeah.
All right, you guys.
None in the campaign, though.
No.
Any hits in the
Steered clear of that.
That's right.
All right, Anthony, Corey, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
A 30-year-old living with his parents. He won't leave. His parents took him to court. Next.
Yeah. Hi, is Chaz here?
Cass is nowhere here to see you! Pick up your skateboard!
I live with my mom. Oh. Yeah. You hungry? Hey, Ma! Can we get some meatloaf?
Classic scene from Wedding Crashers, but in upstate New York, it seems art is imitating life. A couple has been trying to kick their 30-year-old son out of their house after living there rent-free for 8 years. They asked him to leave 5 times and even offered him money to get out, but he refused. So they took him to court. And just this week, a judge evicted the unemployed millennial.
It's not so much that not that I won't leave. It's not that I don't want to leave. It's that I just need enough time. I don't need very much.
I know you keep saying that, but you've had 8 years, and they've asked you 5 different times.
Well, I expect to be out in about 3 months or so. I'm going to try and make it so that the court supports that's reasonable.
So is this the right thing to do? Political commentator Danielle McLaughlin and Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren join me now. So Tommy, gosh, I mean, can you imagine? This guy doesn't have a girlfriend, doesn't have a job. His parents just want him to get on with his life. What would you do if you were the parents? Would you take him to court to kick him out?
You would really hope it wouldn't have to come to that, but it's just sad for me as someone who's 25 years old to look at someone in this position and think that generations past were storming beaches and fighting for our freedom, and now we have millennials that have to be forcibly kicked out of their parents' home. How far have we fallen in 2018?
He's storming the fridge for a late night stack, I think. Danielle, I disagree, though, a little bit with Tommy. I think this kid is showing a lot of tenacity. Okay, he's dug in, he's working really hard at staying where he is, and he's even showing a little legal spunk by representing himself in court. Maybe he's got a legal career ahead of him.
Maybe he doesn't. I think probably his parents would prefer that. You know, the first question I asked when I saw this was which lawyer would take this case on. It seems that he is looking after himself, which this is probably the most motivated he's probably been seen in 8 years. I feel bad for him, of course. He's one of the millennials.
He's working really hard to stay where he is.
He is. I can't believe that his parents had to write him 5 letters. As a parent myself, I've got a 3-year-old. I can't imagine in 27 years having to go to court to kick my daughter out of my home.
Oh, God. Well, we're going to be following this guy. We've invited him on Water's World, and I think he may actually do the show, so everybody needs to stick around and watch next week. Let's play some sound from this guy, Lawrence Tribe, constitutional scholar, Harvard guy. He was talking about impeachment vis-a-vis President Trump. This is what he said.
You can't be the boy who cried wolf and expect to have a viable impeachment power. You can't use it over and over again against the same president.
Right.
If you're going to shoot him, you've got to shoot to kill.
Shoot to kill. Now, Tommy, I don't want to be the PC police here. You're going to say whatever you want. I'm not going to get that sensitive. But if a Republican had talked about impeachment and said you got to shoot to kill with Barack Obama, can you imagine the outrage?
Well, the double standard is the only standard that the left likes to uphold. But again, because we're conservatives, we understand that it was not the best phrasing. I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. I'm willing to give the guy a break. But you know what? I actually agree with him. Yeah, I agree with him on the impeachment stuff, though. I mean, as much as they continue to talk about impeachment, it just makes them look worse and worse and worse. They're not helping their case. So, hey, I don't agree with his choice of words, but the guy's right.
It is true. But I love when the Democrats talk about impeachment, Danielle. I mean, just why don't you talk about impeachment? Why don't you talk about Russia? why don't you talk about MS-13 being good people? I'd say that should be the roadmap for the midterms.
I agree that Democrats have probably made some mistakes here, but I actually love that I agree with Tommy on this, and I think I agree with you. What Professor Tribe was saying was that if Democrats talk about this far too much, if they try and utilize this power too much, it's lost. The power of impeachment is lost. He said very clearly that this needs to be a bipartisan thing, and if it is to happen and for the country to accept it, that's absolutely what needs to happen. The only other thing I'll say is that words matter, but so do actions. And we have seen, even from our own president, in rallies where a press is spit on or protesters are punched, there's been a little bit of this stuff going on and a lot of rhetoric. And so I think that all sides needs to just take it down.
I think we found out that the Democrats paid for guys to go into these Trump rallies and swing at Trump supporters. That was proven. I think some undercover video showed that, Tommy. Now, speaking of getting a little nasty and dirty, you had a problem out there somewhere in the country. I guess you had water thrown on you. Let's play some of that video so everybody can see. All right, so someone threw water on you. Why did they do that?
Well, I would like to just say that thank you for playing that, especially on Water's World. You know, it's still a little traumatic. I'm kidding. But
I know. I don't want to give you
I was at lunch with my family.
Yeah. So you're out?
I mean, again, it was water. It's not the end of the world, but it just shows the unloving and intolerant left and their true colors. And I experienced that firsthand. I experienced it on a weekly basis, but this was above and beyond. But the fact that they were proud of it, they wanted to post it online, yeah, that's a new low. But hey, that's the left.
It is. I was at a bar on election night 2016 watching Trump win, and obviously getting a little excited when he started picking up some Democrat states, and had my fists in the air and having a good time. And all of a sudden, this young lady threw a drink at me right over here in Midtown Manhattan, soaked me. I think it was water. I couldn't taste that well. And she ran out of the bar like a total animal. And it happens to people. There's nothing you can do about it when water gets thrown at you. But it's happened to Ann Coulter. I think they threw pies at her during a speech. People get glitter bombed. It doesn't really happen on the right, Danielle. You don't see a lot of conservatives throwing things like water or fruit at Democrats. Why do you think it's the left that likes to hurl things through the air?
I'm not convinced that this is just the lefties being
Well, I have
bad.
just convinced you by my numerous examples.
You know, I will say this, that throwing water, throwing fruit, throwing a pie, none of this stuff is okay.
Well, it depends what kind of pie.
Well, if it's a really yummy pie and you get to eat a little bit, okay,
Yeah,
probably
that's
it's
fine.
okay. And Tommy, I feel for you, and I wish that we weren't in a place where this was happening. And so I think what we need to do is think a little bit about what we say and what we do, and let's try for a return to decency. Like, you and I can sit here. I didn't bring a pie. I might not agree with you, but we can have a conversation.
Tommy,
matters.
do you get heat when you go out? I mean, you're becoming such a lightning rod. I don't know why, but people have such visceral reactions to you. They either love you or they throw water on you. When you walk around, do you take security?
Well, I have to tell you, even though I have some encounters like that one, most of the encounters that I have are positive.
Yeah.
And usually in California, it's people coming up to me saying, oh my goodness, I'm a conservative. Thank you for being a conservative in California. So yeah, there are some like this that are, you know, animalistic and they have to act like this to get attention. But by and large, there are a lot of good Americans out there on the left and the right that appreciate free speech. So I'm just happy for that.
I mean, it's like 0.001% of the people that do this. This is not a regular occurrence. But when they do it, they try to blow it up because they're proud of it. They think they're heroes for doing things like this, when in fact they're just a bunch of cowards. All right, Tommy and Danielle, have a great weekend and enjoy. Try not to get any water on you if you don't want it. And speaking of water, I get a lesson in waterboarding. That's next.
A seven-nation army couldn't hold me back. They're gonna rip it off.
There is a lot of adrenaline with being a journalist. I think it's one of the things that drew us to the business. You want to be well informed so that whenever news breaks, you're ready to tackle it. I think the nighttime hours are invaluable. The fact that we've added a hard news hour at 11 p.m. Eastern is critical. Whatever is developed through the day, people are fully informed from coast to coast before they go to bed. There is something about getting that score, knowing you've gotten it right, and breaking something that's really important.
And live from America's News headquarters, I'm Ed Henry, the American prisoner held in a Venezuelan prison, returning to the U.S. tonight. Joshua Holt reuniting with his family a short time ago. The Utah native went to the country in 2016 to marry a Venezuelan woman. He was arrested shortly thereafter on weapons charges and held for 2 years without a trial. He's expected to be welcomed by President Trump at the White House any minute. We'll bring you there live once it happens. Meanwhile, the leaders of North and South Korea holding a surprise meeting today, just 2 days after the president abruptly canceled a summit with Kim Jong-un. Kim and South Korean President Moon Jae-in discussing several topics, including their opinions on how to carry out a successful U.S.-North Korea summit in the future. The president says he is still open to meeting with Kim. I'm Ed Henry. Now back to Watters World, and stick with FoxNews.com for all of your headlines throughout the weekend.
Despite objections from the left, President Trump swore in the first female CIA director this week, Gina Haspel.
Gina, congratulations. There is no one in this country better qualified for this extraordinary office than you. Our enemies will take note. Gina is tough. She is strong. And when it comes to defending America, Gina will never, ever back down. I know her.
The beef against Haspel was based on her involvement with enhanced interrogation practices like waterboarding. Green Beret and former UFC fighter Tim Kennedy says waterboarding is not torture, and even recorded himself being waterboarded for 42 minutes just to prove his critics wrong.
I also didn't orchestrate the murdering of thousands of Americans on planes, in buildings that burnt to death. Some of them had the choice of jumping to their death or being burnt alive. So here is my sympathy for those guys that have been waterboarded.
But just the whole, because it was like a tech Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yeah. Just the whole the geeks win type thing.
Tim Kennedy joins me now. I would never do that, Tim. I'm too soft, but I'm glad you did it because you can tell us what it feels like. So in your own words, describe what it's like to be waterboarded for that long.
I mean, it's not comfortable. We won't mince words. It's not a pleasant experience. You know, as you're at that angle, slightly inverted, the water pools in the back of your sinus, and it's bad. It feels like you're drowning, but you're not drowning, because drowning is when water goes into your lungs. So you're just laying there in the water, even though you're trying to hold your breath, maybe you're trying to force positive pressure to keep all that water out. It doesn't stop it from going down your eyes and going through your nose and running down the back of your throat and then pooling in the back of your sinus. And it is uncomfortable, but that's all it is.
Okay,
it's not permanent. It's not damage. It's just uncomfortable.
So it's intensely uncomfortable, intensely irritating, and agonizing, would you say, but not torture?
Mm-hmm. No, I wouldn't even go so far as to say agonizing. I would go, I think uncomfortable is the closest you can get. Okay. I could do that for hours. You know, you could stick me in there and strap my arms down. You could punch me in the stomach, and it's still just me laying there, and you're dumping water on my face, and it doesn't feel good.
Well, it is effective, because some people who may not have the same training you had as a special operator did give up valuable intelligence, and we have Democrat CIA directors, Panetta, Republican CIA directors say that it led the waterboarding to intelligence, and at one point the waterboarding of KSM, the mastermind behind 9/11, led us to bin Laden's whereabouts in Afghanistan.
Yeah, there's no question that this has garnered valuable information that has saved Americans' lives. Now, the difference, and this is the hard thing for people to understand, it comes down to the person that's on the board. You know, I am resolute in my convictions. I understand morality, and I believe in ethics. And the people that we have waterboarded, they are the most despicable humans to walk the face of this planet. I mean, these are the Nazis of this generation. These are the people that torture, maim, kill everyone they have access to, and they're bullies and they're cowards. So when you take somebody like that and you take away their authority and you take away their control and you put them on the board and they've lost that power of being able to control everything, they freak out because they're cowards.
Yes.
And that's the difference.
Well,
I disagree with you when you said...
Go ahead. What do you disagree with?
You said that you wouldn't get on that board. I think that you would have no problem with it. I think you'd be like, oh, this is uncomfortable and this is horrible. But you're still a man of conviction. You're still a man of morals. And you would lay there and you'd be like, do you know what? This sucks, but whatever.
Well, I'm glad
those guys are cowards.
You think so highly of me. I really appreciate it. And let me get your understanding of the Democratic mindset when it comes to waterboarding. Why do you think Democrats are so obsessed with prohibiting this type of procedure? Is it because they feel sorry for terrorists? Is it because they don't say they want to not drop to their level? What do you think motivates them to be so outraged when American CIA agents pour water on terrorist faces?
They're apologists. They have forgotten. They're so short-sighted in what happened to us on 9/11. We've been at war for 17 years, and these are people that will put a man on their knees in front of them and slowly slit their throat on cameras. I'm looking at a camera right now. Imagine somebody in front of me, and I slice his neck open. What kind of human can do that? Those are the people that we've waterboarded. Now, I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, but they have been apologizing for what we have done since 9/11. Listen. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. We dropped atom bombs, nuclear bombs to end a war, and we are still at war with people that have done even more disgusting things. Right. So, well, I just don't understand. There's no excuse for them apologizing for these people.
I don't understand it either, because I know if the sons or daughters of any of these Democrats that are objecting to enhanced interrogation were ever in a position where they had a loved one at the hands of an al-Qaeda terrorist, and the only way to save that person was to waterboard someone to lead to those whereabouts, they 100% would say yes, do whatever it takes to find my son or daughter. Tim Kennedy, thank you very much. I got to run.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Up next, Diamond and Silk.
I got a question. I need to ask somebody. Why is it that when
Hollywood honcho Harvey Weinstein turned himself in this week. He was booked in New York on rape charges and sex abuse charges. He posted $1 million bail, so he's back out on the streets. But it's considered a flight risk. He's rocking an ankle bracelet and confined to New York and Connecticut. Here with reaction, my favorite ladies, Diamond and Silk. So ladies, Harvey's in handcuffs. You think he's going to beat the rap?
He shouldn't. If he did this here, he need to do his time. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. And these Hollywood elites are going to have to know you cannot abuse.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Ed Henry in New York. You can see the president is with released prisoner from Venezuela. Let's go to the Oval Office line.
In a Venezuelan prison, almost 2 years, Josh. And, amazing that you were able to take it. Your daughter, Marion's here, and your parents, Jason and Laurie, and you went through a lot, and you were in there fighting all the way. And I want to thank Bob Corker. Great job you did over there. Great job. And I want to thank Mike Lee and Mia. You've been, from every time I'd see Mia, she'd talk about you, Josh. She'd say, what about Josh? I said, what about something else? Can we talk about something else? She was always doing it, and Orrin Hatch is a legend, as you know. He's a legend in the Senate and in this country, and Orrin, you were great. So, Bob, Mike, Mia, Orrin, I want to thank you very much. Thank you. So we've had 17 prisoners released during the Trump administration. Most people don't know that. You remember Aya? We called the president of Egypt, and he released her. She was there for a long time, 3 years. And the previous administration was unable to get her out. A fantastic young woman, and she was released. As you know, in North Korea, we just had a very great success. We have 3 wonderful people, Americans, that were released just recently, and they're now home safe with their families. And you were a tough one, I have to tell you. That was a tough situation. But we've had 17 released, and we're very proud of that record. Very proud. And we have others coming. We're in the midst of some very big negotiations to get others out. In most cases, they're Americans, but we can try and help other countries, too, where there's injustice. So we've been working very hard on it. But I just want to welcome you to the Oval Office, welcome you to the White House. It's really very special to have you both. You've gone through a lot. You've gone through a lot, more than most people could endure. I want to thank your parents for being such loving parents. You were really very, very special. You were fighting all the way. There was not a day that, there wasn't an hour or a minute that you weren't thinking about this man and calling everybody and letting us know. And we are all, as a group, very happy. The State Department has been fantastic. Where are my guys from the State Department? Where are they? You have John Sullivan. You guys were really fantastic. Look at all those people that work at the State Department. You're probably surprised to see that. But maybe I'd like to ask the parents, your great parents, if you have something to say before. Well, I'd like to get to the senators, and I'd like to get to you, Mia, and ask you also. But could I start with the parents?
I just want to say thank you to you personally for everything that you've done, as well as the State Department, but all of you. I just can't even tell you. I've grown to love Senator Hatch and Mia so much. Not everybody gets to talk to Senator Hatch and Mia Love, and when everything happened last week, Mia was the one that answered her phone and was the one that got things rolling with Senator Hatch to save Josh. And it was
I've never seen Mia cry before.
It was a horrifying week, and she got me through it with Senator Hatch. Senator Hatch's office, I cannot tell you how much I love all of your staff. So thank you. And I also want to say thank you to President Maduro for releasing Josh and letting him come home.
That's very nice. Pop?
She pretty much said everything. That's why I let the pretty face take care of this kind of stuff. So
Very smart. You're smart. Josh, would you like to say something?
I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude for you guys, for everything that you've done, for the support of my wife through those 2 years. They were very, very, very difficult 2 years. Not really the great vacation that I was looking for, but we're still together. Starting off a marriage rough, but now we're going to be together, and I'm just so grateful for what you guys have done and for thinking about me and caring about me, just a normal person. So it really touches me, and thank you.
You've been very brave, actually. You've been incredibly brave. We saw what was happening inside of that prison, so you really have been very, very brave. Bob Corker, would you like to say something? Great job.
Well, thank you. We're just glad to have you home. A lot of people have worked for a long time to make this happen, and I want to thank everyone at the State Department. In particular, I want to thank Caleb McNary, who knows this area more than probably anybody in the United States. He's here with me today. But
where's Caleb?
Caleb,
you're back there. I'm back here. Come on over here. Hey, Caleb. Fantastic job. That is really great.
It was quite a experience that we could almost write a book about just the last 48 hours. But we're glad we're out. We were actually, Mr. President, taking off on the runway. Nothing in Venezuela happens quite in the same way that it happens here. And we were going down the runway, and they turned the engines off, and we turned around. So we still weren't sure we were leaving until.
What happened? Why did they do that?
There was an instrument issue that occurred, but it finally, we got out of there, and obviously Josh had a huge smile on his face. When we landed, he did.
Probably the only time that anybody was ever happy that there was a bad instrument on an airplane. That was a better alternative, right? Than going back.
I say there were people that we worked with down there that I do hope at the right time you will have the chance to thank. There are people who really want to try to affect the relationship in a good way, and you know, they were very helpful to us in getting him out of there. I know you talked with one of them last night on the phone when I was having dinner with him, and I appreciate you doing so.
Yeah, that's great, Bob. That's really great. And, you know, we have Pastor Brunson, a wonderful Christian pastor, and he's right now in Turkey. He's been there a long time, and they say he's a spy, but he's not a spy. And we're going to all work, and we've been working for his release. He's having a hard time. There's a trial going on, but the trial is not so much of a trial. And we're talking to the folks in Turkey about doing something about it. But Pastor Brunson, I hope you can hear us. We'll be helping you at some point. We've been working on it for a while. It's been there a long time, and he's a totally innocent man. Mike Lee, would you like to say something?
Sure. I want to thank all those who have been involved in this, to Senator Corker, Senator Hatch, Representative Love, to Caleb, to the State Department, everyone who's been involved. Josh, I want to wish you a warm welcome home. We've missed you. We prayed for you. And Miriam and Tammy, welcome to our country, which is now your country. Quisiera extender una bienvenida a ustedes, a nuestro país, que ahora es su país, nuestro país.
Very good. Oh, you understood that beautifully. It's very good. Good job. Good job. Orrin Hatch, Senator, spectacular man. Please.
Mr. President, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. As you know, I was the one guy who really supported you 100%.
Very early.
And I do now. I think you're doing a terrific job, and this shows why we support you. You actually, this was, and I have to say, these folks did a great job. I was really thrilled with the way Bob handled himself. Caleb and others did such a good job. We have good people working with us. And the folks in this delegation all very sincerely want to get Josh out of there. And the parents are just as good a people as I've ever met in my life. And you better really live a good life. That's all I can say. But this wouldn't have happened without you. We just want you to know that, and when you look back over your tenure in the presidency, this is just one of the many great things you're doing. But it's really a great thing. And to know that we can rely on you and count on you and talk to you and meet with you, these are all very important things. We love you, boy, and we just want to support you every way we can.
Nice. I appreciate it. And you've all been very supportive, but I really appreciate that. That's very nice. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mia?
I've been thinking about what I was going to say today, and it's been an emotional day, but so many Utah families send their families out, send their sons and daughters out for maybe a year and a half to 2 years, and they want to know that they've got, if something happens to their children, that they've got someone, or the United States will have their back. And I don't think that there is a person in the United States right now that doesn't realize that you have their back. And so I wanted to personally thank you for keeping a promise that you made to me. Every time I would go and see you, I would bring up Joshua's name and you would say, I'm going to do everything I can. And obviously, I believe it. I also wanted to say to Josh that your mom never let us forget about you.
That's right.
She is one of the strongest women I know. And we have started a friendship that started through maybe some heartache and some pain, but we are going to be friends forever because of the bond that we have had. And so, you know, I just wanted to say sincerely that we are with you. Utah has been praying for you and so happy that you're coming home. And Utah wants to thank you, Mr. President, for making this happen. We wouldn't have been able to do this without you. Everybody here, Senator Hatch, Mike Lee, Bob Corker, I mean, the State Department, we all work together to make this happen. And, you know, you don't know us, but we know you very well, Joshua, and we welcome you home.
Thank you very much, Mia. It is true, though. Every time I'd see Mia, I said, look, don't mention the name Joshua Holt. We're doing it. But she didn't forget. She was out there pitching, as was Bob, as was Mike, as was Oren. I mean, we really had a great team. That's a strong nucleus right there, but we had a great team. Great job. I just want to mention we're doing very well in terms of the summit with North Korea. Looks like it's going along very well. As you know, there are meetings going on as we speak in a certain location, which I won't name, but you'd like the location. It's not so far away from here. And I think there's a lot of goodwill. I think people want to see if we can get the meeting and get something done. If we got that done, and if we can be successful in the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, it would be a great thing for North Korea. It would be a great thing for South Korea. It'd be great for Japan and great for the world, great for the United States, great for China. A lot of people are working on it. It's moving along very nicely. So we're looking at June 12th in Singapore. That hasn't changed. And it's moving along pretty well. So we'll see what happens. Okay? Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Let's keep moving. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Those talks have gone very well. They've gone very well. I'm fully impressed. The talks have gone very, very well. I'd rather not say, but the talks have gone very well. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Press. We're leaving now. Thank you. We are leaving.
Well, to say the least, not a usual Saturday night at the White House, especially not on a Memorial Day weekend. I'm Ed Henry in New York. You have been seeing the President of the United States, Donald Trump, with Joshua Holt. He was a Mormon missionary who traveled to Venezuela from Utah to marry a woman that he had met online. You saw her there as well in the Oval Office. His parents were there, and apparently her daughter as well, and it grew very emotional. Senator Mike Lee, one of many members of the Utah congressional delegation there, he grew emotional as he said, "Our country is now your country," both in English and in Spanish. This caps a remarkable 2-year journey for Joshua Holt and his wife and daughter. As you saw there, he had been in a prison in Venezuela because of the Maduro administration, the dictatorship there that the Trump administration has been battling with. There are U.S. sanctions that are hammering their economy right now. This move seen potentially as a goodwill gesture, obviously, the Maduro government hoping, they may be wrong, but hoping that this opens the door to a broader conversation with President Trump about easing some of those sanctions. Senator Marco Rubio and others, though, very active on social media today saying that this is not enough. This is a good step, a goodwill gesture, if you will. But what really needs to happen is that Maduro needs to step down. Democracy needs to be restored in Venezuela before those U.S. sanctions, those punishing sanctions, should be relieved. As I mentioned, a remarkable 2-year journey for Joshua and his family while he was in prison, but also caps a remarkable day.